Welcome to Out of Chaos Podcast, a discussion-based podcast where we try to make sense of the chaotic world we live in. We talk about life, business, and we talk about self-development. Let's open our mind to greatness and grow together. We have some valuable content to share with you all, so stay with us until the end. And remember, you could always share your thoughts and ideas with us on social media.
All right, perfect. So welcome everyone. This is episode 4. We're introducing a 4-part series on love, right? So the 4 different types of love, and they're basically, we're so used to loving one type of way, but little do we know that there's actually different types of love, right? And we kind of want to dive into that. And today we're going to be looking at the Storge type of love. So what is Storge? The Storge type of love, it comes from a Greek meaning, Greek definition. In Greek it's Storge, but it means familial, family love. So the type of love that you get through, obviously, the bond between a mother and a son, or mother and a daughter, between your parents, your biological brother and sister. So it's mostly based on biology, natural affection. So in essence, it's like a deeper connection, right? So again, it describes family love, the affectionate bond that develops naturally between parents and children, brothers and sisters, and it's probably one of the strongest way of showing love within a family environment. Don't you agree?
Yeah. So I feel like it's probably one of the strongest ways of showing love, especially within a Latino family. And as you know, Oscar and I were both Latino. So, we grew up as, my mother, father, they're Latino. So, and the Greek word storge kind of describes family love, the affectionate bond that develops naturally between parents and children, brothers and sisters alike.
Yeah. So let's dive into it, right? Obviously, family love is the first love that we are introduced to as soon as we're born, right?
Exactly.
The moment we're born, we're again in a family environment. The type of love we get from our grandmothers, our grandparents, our mom, our dad, our brothers and sisters, right? That's the first kind of type of love that we're introduced. So it's so important because it's basically the foundation of your entire life.
Exactly. Man.
This is why we need to point that out. The family love is the first love that you're introduced, right? And it's so important. And again, this podcast is about the chaotic times, the chaotic environment, and it's not that we're trying to focus always on the negative, but it's so important to realize what the foundation of love is. So later in life, when we grow up, we learn how to love properly, right? Again, so many families are, so many children are being raised in abusive homes, in homes that maybe their parents didn't have love. So how do they know what love is, right? But let's go back to the beginning. What do you think about the connection between a mother and its child? I know we're not women, right? But from what your mother has told you, what you've seen, what have you deduced?
For sure, I would say my connection with my mother is really strong, probably stronger than I would say with my dad. And I just feel it's just a deeper sense of love almost. You kind of get when you get from a mother. Because I guess as guys, it's typical to say, right? But us males, we don't really show love, or we're kind of more closed about our feelings, right?
Yeah.
But our mothers, they're always there for us, right? They show us compassion, love. And I think speaking from my personal experience, I think I learned love first from my family member was probably my mother. She's the first one that showed me love and compassion, right? So it made me to the nice, compassionate person that I am today.
Yeah, again, for me, my mom would always tell me that she had this deep connection with not just me but all her kids while we were in the womb. And that's pretty interesting because it's not even obviously she told me once we were out she saw us, right? But it's so deep. And if there's any mothers listening to this, maybe you can help us understand better. But from what she's told me, it's almost like a spiritual connection. It's a deeper meaning connection that you can't really explain, right? I'm not saying everybody has it, because there are mothers that give birth and then just give away their kids or so I don't think it's something that everybody feels, but there has to be a deeper connection that's far beyond just emotion. It has to be almost spiritual in a way, right? Because it's not normal how a mother can feel this bond to something she hasn't even seen yet. You know, isn't that interesting? Like it's
Yeah, I mean, like when you think about it, like when you're basically just in your mother's womb, your mother has this deep connection. Just not, I would say spiritual, but also like bodily too, because she could feel you inside her. Like
yeah,
even to like just like a kick, and when you kick in the womb,
yeah,
she can feel that, and she's basically nursing you, and she's within your body, and you're growing in her body. So I feel like personally, I think that is like one of the deepest connections, like any human can ever have. And that's
yeah,
why you cannot let it go, because it's like you're within a person, literally growing.
yeah,
So I mean, I think it's just like kind of like almost kind of like a symbiote love, kind of, like
yeah,
you need one and another to like actually grow, and eventually you're able to grow out of the cocoon and
yeah.
spread your wings when you finally come out.
Exactly. And I saw that firsthand with my little brother and sister. I was 16 when my mom had twins, right?
Yeah.
And literally, like the first day or two, like my little brother, like when he opened it, like he wouldn't stop looking at my mom. Like he was, they were born prematurely too, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think it was like 8 months or 7.5, something like that. It was very premature.
Right.
But what was so interesting was like my little brother, he was in the incubator, and then when they would open it to feed him, he would look at my mom, and he would stare at her like he was in love. And that's how, did you get it? Like
Yeah.
that's unexplainable. Like he didn't do it to the nurses or anything.
Right.
Like how, and my mom would cry, and then I saw that. I was a witness to that. It's amazing. It's beautiful how that is.
I mean, I think it's just deep, like any child knows their mother's love, right? And I think like, scientifically speaking, you already know your mom because mothers, when they talk or when they sing, when you're in the womb, they
Their
know
voices, right?
they know your voice, by then. So, I mean, maybe your brother already knew your mother's voice already.
Yeah, I know. It's so interesting, and that's a thing, right? Like that's all nice and beautiful, right? But what happens when you kind of grow into a relationship with your family, and maybe the family hasn't had that love themselves, right? Like there's one thing between being connected because you were born out of
Right.
your mother, but that doesn't guarantee you that you'll know what love is. It doesn't guarantee that you'll be happy, and it doesn't guarantee that like the relationship between you and your family is going to be good.
Yeah.
It's just like the first stepping stone, right? Of like love, of like, okay, we have this deep connection. I didn't choose you to be my mother. I didn't choose you to be my father. I didn't choose my brothers or my sisters. But the fact that we're united by blood, right? Or by a deeper meaning is like, I kind of have to love you, but it's because I want to, because of that deeper connection, right? But can you elaborate more if you've seen like what happens after? Like I guess like the negative side of it when you start to grow,
Yeah. So I feel like you said, like it's an important stepping stone, right? When you're in your early childhood stages, and if you don't get the proper love, I feel, then that's when the big connection, like of later in life, you'll start like, if you don't get familiar love from either of your parents, then I think that's almost like a stepping stone into the wrong path.
Yeah.
And you won't be able to love yourself. You won't be able to love other people if you're never shown any love. And I think if it's like the critical stages early, you got to show your kids, proper way how to love them, bro.
Yeah.
And nurture them, because it's all about like love, nurture and nature, right?
Yeah.
And if there's a balance of the two, then I feel like it's just chaos, for the kids to grow in.
It's always been a theory of mine that like, if our parents, right, or if parents have never known what true love is, how can you teach love to your kids? You can love them because they came out of you or because you raised them, right? I completely am on board with that. In fact, that's our next topic, which is familial love, and it's kind of like a friendship bond. It's a bond, right, that you can form with anybody that's not your blood. But Storge Love, it's a bond that's almost by blood, right? It's like, again, mostly thinking about parents, right, and brothers and sisters. So that's the thing, like what happens when your family has never known what true love is. They can only give you like that Storge love, but it will never transcend that. It will never be
more.
Exactly, and it won't even be useful at times because just because a mother loves you, it doesn't mean they are gonna teach you good values.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
no, all I think personally, like if I would say something about that is, I feel like for mothers and fathers, I think at a certain point, like your natural instincts kind of kick in. It's kind of like those the mother bears and father bears. Kind of just
Yeah,
like kind of you protect your cubs, right? And
yeah,
but you don't just protect them with love, but also like you show them love, you give them affection,
yeah,
and it just kind of happens naturally. And I feel like it's a natural phenomenon within like the human race. But at the same time, if you don't show the proper love and guidance to your kids, then I think it can be toxic, in certain cultures, right? So I know certain people feel like ownership over their kids, right? And they can like, control them
yeah,
at an early age. They're supposed to be like, certain duties of the family or have certain responsibilities.
yeah, exactly.
And at that point, like, they just become almost like slaves. Well,
Yeah.
not like slaves, but like, you know what I mean, right?
No, it's we kind of
along
we
those
we kind
lines.
of talked about this, like, and it's I want to say it's controversial, but I mean we all know we all, if we look past our stubbornness, we all know this to be true, that a lot of our parents see us as like property almost, right?
Yeah.
And again, like it makes sense in a way because they did raise us, they did spend all that time. But I want to talk about more about like our culture, right? Because I don't know any other culture apart from my own. And in our culture, I have noticed a lot of that. I want to say toxicity, right? Because it's that environment, and I can name like at least 20 people off the top of my head that have that trauma in their life, right? Because of this toxic environment. Again, it doesn't mean that our parents did bad or their parents did bad. It just means I didn't know better. I've never been. I think everybody has a story, right? Apart from maybe like super serial killers, even they have a story, but maybe it's not worth for them to be told, right? At that point. But apart from that, everybody has a story as to why they are the way they are. If they're bitter, if they're like grumpy all the time, it's because of something. And that's what we have to be understanding, right? But it doesn't take away from the toxicity, right? And that's what I want to talk about right now, at least in this segment. Like, have you noticed in our culture, there exists that like ownership over the kids?
Yeah.
And I know people are gonna get so defensive about their parents, but if you look past that, this is true. Like it's where like, listen, I gave you life, you do what I say.
Yeah. And I'll speak again from personal experience. Like like I told you last time. Remember how my parents, we had a store, right, growing up, and I felt like at times, like not like it was child labor, but at times like it felt like it, because
Yeah.
it's like I had no choice. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't do certain school curricular activities because my devotion to helping my parents at the store is always there,
Yeah.
right? So I felt like sometimes I was more of an employee than a son,
Yeah.
right? And like you said, so I did feel that toxic kind of environment where, I didn't have a choice. I couldn't do the activities other kids were able to do, and that, I mean, personally, like I would never want any of my kids to go through that,
Yeah.
because I would want them to explore like anything like they wanted to do, right? Like I wanted to join the baseball team, I wanted to join the soccer team, I wanted to join, like various sports teams, but I couldn't because of my commitment to helping my parents in the store, right? So, as one example.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you have any examples?
Oh man, I honestly, I want to say this, right? Like, this topic is probably like 30% of why I wanted to do this podcast,
Okay.
because I've seen too much. Like, it's kind of like maybe abuse, sexual abuse, and maybe emotional abuse. It's something that's so prevalent. Almost like from everybody I've talked to, like I can say like 8 to 9 out of 10 people have been abused in those two ways, right?
Right.
And that's, so the fact that so many people have been abused like that means that there's a problem. So it's likewise, a lot of Latinos that I've talked to are mostly like from back home, right? Apart from Western culture, have had this kind of toxic upbringing, right?
Yeah.
That we get by. Again, we get by. Like in regards to me, I don't. It was toxic in different ways, but overall, I can't say that it was super toxic. That my parents did give me the freedom, but I'm gonna say this: I made them give me my freedom. Because again, they're followers and they're doers, right? Or followers and leaders, right? I'm not saying I'm a leader, but I'm saying, let's say when my mom yelled at me, I'd be like, Mom, I was literally a little kid. I'd be like, Mom, like if you yell at me, like I'm not gonna listen. You know, like I will not do what you say. But if you talk to me, I promise whatever it is, even if I never have to see my friends again, like I'll listen to you. Just don't yell at me. And
Right.
ever since then, and my mom till this day, she tells me, she's like, when you told me that, she goes like, I understood you, because I used to feel that when I was a little girl. And ever since then, me and my mom, whenever I would do something bad, she'd be like, listen, mijo, like this is what you're doing. I'm like, okay, mom, sorry.
Oh, okay.
You know, but if I would just be like, okay, mom, you know, then I don't think any lesson, I would have never grown. My mom would have never grown, you know?
Exactly.
So I think that's important too, that kids also take command of their own life in a respectful way. It doesn't mean, oh, mom,
Yeah, I'm gonna do
you know,
whatever
like,
I want.
you know, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Leave me alone. It's my
Yeah.
life. Like I never said it to my mom, you know?
Yeah.
It was always like, mom, like, just, I'll do what you say. Just talk to me like a human being, you
Yeah.
know? Don't yell at me. Don't throw the chancla, you know? So what about you? Like,
No, well, for me, like going back to the example, I would say like I would have to kind of like negotiate with my mom. I'd be like, mom, like, look, I help at the store this amount like of days. Like, you know, just if I go to like soccer like practice or, you know, in the tryouts, you know, they're only gonna be like an hour or two tops, right? And I could come back, and you know, I can help out in the store.
yeah,
You know, but I would have to tell like soccer's my passion. Like I love it. You know, playing as a kid, and just growing up was just for me what I wanted to do. So that's like how I kind of like had to navigate through that. But that's one way. But like another way was just kind of like, you know, like I know like every kid does this, but like you know you would have to like clean the house before you would ask your parents.
to get them in the mood.
Yeah, to get them in the mood. So like again, that's another form of negotiation
Yeah.
that I learned at early stages in my life. That I had to be like, okay, like if I want something, like you know, you got to give something in return.
Yeah.
So that was just one way I had to navigate as well. But I guess touching back to what we're talking about, like Storge and like family love, I also feel kind of like within Latino culture, it's just kind of like I guess it's a result of living with each other every day. You know, it's kind of this familiar love that you know it kind of just settles into you know each other's rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, and then like it's kind of rather like than a love at first sight kind of
Yeah.
love. It just kind of happens, you know,
Mhm.
organically, and that's kind of the beauty of it too, though, right?
Yeah.
I feel like when you love your parents, if it's just because it happens, not because it's like love at first sight kind of
Yeah.
thing, you know, that kind of doesn't really happen. It just happens organically, like I said, and that's the beauty of it, you know.
And that's the thing, right? Like, when I said that this is the reason 30% why I wanted to start this podcast is because, I've seen so much damage from that toxic type of Storge love, you know, where it's like, yes, you're right. Like, my mom did give birth to me; she gave life,
Yeah.
but also, like, realistically, she's not God. You know, she didn't fully give me life. You know, like, and at the end of the day,
Yeah.
just like she's free to do what she wants now, like I've always been free to do what I have to do, right?
Exactly.
And again, in a respectful way. If I was like really rebellious, if I was out doing bad stuff, I feel like my mom would have been more strict. I was actually a good kid too, not all the time, but because she trusted me, and I think that's what people need to understand. Like, you got to be trustworthy you got to be respectful to get respect, and you have to be
Exactly.
trustworthy to be trusted. I know vice versa. I know a lot of parents that like gave complete trust to their kids, and those kids abused that trust.
Yeah.
But and then I know the opposite, where the kids were really good kids and their parents treated them like garbage. So it's a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
So again, what this show is about, balance, right? So you have to not be rebellious, but not to the point where you're like giving all authority away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you don't want to be like a yes man, you know, like you know, the
Exactly.
whole life, you know, you want to develop your own choices, so you could actually, when you become an adult, you know, you have the liberty of choosing your own life, you know, and I feel like that's critical at an early age, because if you don't have that, then you're gonna be just a follower like the rest of your life, and you're just gonna, you know, if your parents are gonna say, you know, become a doctor or an engineer, when in reality, you know, you don't want to be that, you know, you want to be,
Yeah.
I don't know, you want to be an urban planner, or you want to be or a teacher, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. So follow your passions and your dreams at an early age.
Honestly, man, it's just so crazy because I've seen that so much in people, right? Where it's like, I own you, you have to do what I say. And the thing is, I know so many people, and I've heard it, that because they come to me, right? Which is why I'm even talking about this, that they say like, no, Oscar, like, I have to do this because this is the right thing to do. I'm like, No, it's not. Like, saying yes to everything is not the right thing to do.
Exactly.
Like, it's what you're saying. Being a yes man, it would seem like it's the right thing to do, but it's not. And
Yeah.
it comes from a good place, and I commend those people, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good choice, right?
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you agree or not, is, again, this can pertain to other cultures, but in our culture, our parents, or parents in general, are very, like, involved,
Yeah.
even in
Everything.
marriages and stuff.
Yeah.
Bro,
Absolutely.
I don't agree with that. Like,
No.
so again, everything is balanced, right?
Yeah.
So whoever's listening to us, don't think that when we say I don't agree or that we're talking about 100%. Everything is balanced, right? So,
Exactly.
but what I'm talking about is unbalanced in a chaotic way where parents get involved too much, like saying, "Hey, don't let that guy handle your money. Don't let that guy do this. Don't let the guy do that." Like, once you're married, once you live away from your parents, like, you gotta be a big boy, a big girl, and start doing what you need to do to live your life. You know, like, you can't be running back to your parents all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, I've seen many relationships fail and marriages fail because their parents are too involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know if you've seen that, but I've seen it countless.
I've seen it a few times.
Yeah,
But then that's what the point, like, of what we're trying to say, right? Trying to get command of, like, at an early age. Well, I know now, if people that are listening, just I would always, like, take it into account, like, if I ever had kids, give them authority to have them develop their own choices.
yeah,
A little bit of independence. At the same
Exactly.
time, though, you have to be stern. You gotta give them guidance. But touching back to what you were saying, though, it's kind of like, I feel it's like kind of like that old school kind of mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to be involved with everything. It's just, it's too toxic, and
Yeah.
it's so common within Latino families, even within my family, like, everybody kind of has, like, fingers in each other's business. It's
yeah.
like, it's a really toxic kind of environment. And personally, like, I would not, like, if I ever have kids, I would not want to get involved in their marriage. I mean, like, yeah, I would give them, like, guidance,
Yeah.
and, like, if they ever need, like, I don't know, like, just, like, any advice, then personally,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll tell them. But at the same time, if I see something that, like, I don't agree with, obviously I'll still tell them, like, no, like, I think that you should take command of your own money, or you should be in charge.
Yeah.
Because
But-
when if it's a marriage, right, like, at that point,
Yeah.
it's a union, so
A union, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this is why, going back to, like, the main topic, the main reason why we're focusing on Storge Love, it's because it's a bond, right? It's you don't choose your parents in a marriage. You can't tell your mom, like, "Mom, like, don't get involved and don't ever talk to me in my life." You still need their guidance and everything.
exactly.
But this is why, I guess, the main point is this. It's so crucial. I would say that Storge Love, right, is probably the most crucial type of love. Maybe not the most important one, but the crucial, because it's the fundament. It's the main cornerstone of your building, right?
Yeah.
That is your life. And you need that love so you can see love in other people. Because if you think that love is being abused by your parents or being abused by your dad or your mom or your brothers and sisters, and you think that's love, and you're going to grow up like that. It's the first type of love that you see, that you feel, and the first impression is going to be everything. And that's what you're going to grow up thinking. Like, oh my God, this is love. Love is being manipulated and being told what to do, and I have no say. That's love.
Yeah.
And genuinely, I know people that are 30, 40, 50 that genuinely think that to this day,
Yeah.
and that is such a big problem,
Yeah, no, like, honestly, like touching upon that, it's just kind of like, when you see that, it just kind of, it just shows you that, kind of like, they're kind of lost, if you're following that kind of lifestyle. So, I mean, for me, I don't really agree with that, but psychologically speaking, though, when people do kind of fall in love eventually, romantically with somebody, they kind of fall in love with the same trait as their parents, which becomes their they end up which is common, because they're the first adults in your life, and they're the first adults to love you, and vice versa, and they kind of show you that love. So if they kind of show you the wrong kind of toxicity love, then that's what you're gonna find in a partner. And then that's why, like
That's
you
crazy.
said, you see, like, people like 40 or 50, they're gonna end up divorcing because eventually they're gonna wake up and they're like, yo, this is not what I want.
Exactly.
But at that point, it's kind of late, because within their early stages of
Mm.
life, they were developed with that kind of love and that mentality.
That's a
you know?
really good point. That's a really good point. Yo, so it's so crazy that what you're saying, right? Because it's amazing that it's so true. Like the way that we're raised, it's all we know. You know, like we can obviously see other situations, like other families, other people's relationships, but it's so expected, and it shouldn't be surprising that the way that you're loved is the way that you're gonna love. You know, it seems like there would be a lot of influence, you know, the friends you meet in school, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. But overall, what you think love is, what you see of love, is going to be what you saw from your parents, from the people closest to you, right?
Yeah, that's like one of the first connections you make.
Exactly.
And it's kind of established into you, you know, kind of into your roots almost, right? And that's kind of like the irony, right, of it, right? If you don't receive the proper love at an early age, it can really mess you up. And then, you know, people say, you know, this person has mommy issues, has daddy issues, right? And I feel like, there is a correlation between that. And so obviously, when you look for a romantic partner, you kind of stick to these principles and you look with it within a partner.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it can have a negative effect or a positive, but the way you're loved at an early age is important, because if not, then it's just going to be in chaos in your life. And like, you know, in the show, we try to get out of the chaos.
Exactly.
Right? And so, I mean, I would say one thing is just, you know, if I ever have kids, and I advise anybody that ever has kids, like, you know, think about it, like, you know, your choices, and give them the right proper love, you know, because it's going to be a big stepping stone in their lives, and like kind of shape them for their futures.
So when you say give them the right type of love, like that's my dilemma, right?
Right.
How are you supposed to give the right type of love if you don't even know what that type of love is, right? So I guess we can kind of like, I guess, break down what I guess ideal love is, at least between like families, right? And obviously it's like the typical stuff like respect, honesty, sincerity. Obviously in a lot of families there's so many secrets. I never even knew this. Like I've talked to many people and everybody has a secret, whether parents to their kids to their parents. And the number one thing is your parents are your best friends.
Yeah.
That's how you should treat them. Like, again, there's a lot of things that I can't tell. I couldn't tell my mom or my dad. But the moment I kind of broke that barrier and I invited my mom and my dad to be my friends, that's where I felt like they started to understand me a little bit more, right? They started to comprehend the things that I was going through, why I thought the way I thought, and stuff like that. When I made my mom my best friend is when she most helped me, versus when I was just like fighting with her, she was fighting with me, telling me what to do, me rebelling or getting angry, right? When I introduced her to, when I kind of invited her to my life as a friend, that's where everything changed.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like you making that connection, right? Just kind of showing her like what's going on in your life, because at a certain point in our lives, you know, growing up, I felt there was a kind of a disconnection with my mom just because I was growing up, right? So going into high school, I wouldn't be as open.
Yeah.
Because I was just growing up. I felt like it was something I had to go through by myself. But now, like, you know, like in university, I've been way more open with my mom, right?
Yeah.
You know, up now to like my late 20s, like I'm very open with my mom. I can tell her anything, you know, like I can come home and I feel confident enough that, you know, I could tell her anything. And that's a deep type of connection that you need to establish with your parents, because, you know, it's that kind of like symbiotic kind of love, you know, like you kind of need each other to grow and, you know, just be happy, you know. That's the type of love that, you know, anybody is looking for.
And that's the thing, the most important thing. Okay, this is a 4-part series, right? Every part is going to have this main theme. And it's that in order to love, whether as a family member, as a friend, as a romantic interest, you need to realize and understand the definition of love. You need to understand what love looks like, because what it looks like to you can be different to what it looks like to me. Exactly. So let's try to go over some like examples of that, because right now anybody listening can be like, I love my kids, they're my best friends, right?
Right.
But just because they're your best friends, it doesn't mean you love them, you know? It doesn't mean, and this is the thing, loving is one thing, but is your love useful? That's another thing too, right? Like I can give birth to a kid, or not me, but like you can give birth to a child and like you pamper them up, you know, you take care of them, you feed them, but like and then when they grow older, you just throw them to the curb. So what was that for? You know,
Right.
the most important part is to love them, but is your love useful? You know, like you pamper them. Again, there's the opposite side of it where you get too much love. You know, too much love where you can't even grow because
No.
you're so pampered. You're so like princessed. You know,
Yeah.
and they treat you like royalty where you don't even know how to like make your own choices without like having your family to back you up, right? And again, I've seen many examples of that. So that would be my number one thing. So what would you say to people who was like, okay, let's say I don't know what love fully is. Where do I start, or how do I look for it?
Well, I mean, that's just an interesting concept what you just brought up, right? Like, is the love useful? And I think, like, if you don't know how to love somebody, I mean, you should start within yourself at first. Love yourself first. And then once you're able to take care of yourself and actually have that self love,
Yeah,
then you're able to share that with other people. And you're able to share those beautiful tendencies of yourself with other people. And that's why, like you and I, we're able to open to our parents because, we have this tendencies to be open and to share our experiences with our parents.
yeah,
And so the same thing I would say to people, like, have these, like, like moments where you want to, like, just share with, your loved ones and show them, like, the proper kind of like forms of love that you experience and that you're going through in your life, so then you can actually kind of like share whatever you're going through, and then maybe they'll kind of give you some insight or some feedback. And
yeah.
So what do you think?
I guess you could, for me, I would work backwards. I would look at the things that didn't work in my life.
Right.
You know, maybe you can do the same right now. Like, look at the things that didn't work. I told you one of those things was my parents, let's say, when they would yell at me.
Yeah.
It would never work. Like, I don't remember one time being yelled at and I listened. You know, never once. So what I would say is, if you're gonna love someone, don't yell at them. You know, don't
Plain
don't,
and simple.
Exactly, don't yell at them. Number two, something I would say as well is to always want to be better yourself.
Yes.
So this is a concept we were talking about earlier. I understood something that we really think that our parents or our family members are the most qualified people to talk to. You know?
Yeah.
And there's a difference between like the people that love you the most and being qualified. Like, if I tell my parents something hard, they're gonna see me as their little like oh, my mom will see me as her little boy, you know?
Yeah.
Could be 80 years old and she'll see me as a little boy, right? As a little baby or whatever. But the thing is, how can you get qualified help or useful help from someone that sees you as their child? You can't. You need like unbiased help. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you need like an objective view of your problems. So I understood that your parents aren't, or family members aren't the most qualified people to help you. They're not, because yes, they know you, but what qualifies them? Just because they know you, they know your tendencies, that doesn't qualify them to help you, because they might know you, but they don't know the people who are hurting you. They don't know the things that maybe you've grown out of, or the things that you've added to your life that transcends your little family bubble. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'll give you an example. Like, I had this thing growing up where sometimes when my dad would tell me that the way I think would be a little bit weird. He would always tell me that, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't that, and for a long time I'm like, maybe I am a little weird, right? The thing is, but I understand it wasn't that I was weird. Is that everything in my life I always think like that. What I just told you, I reverse it. So instead of saying I'm gonna go from A to B, I'm like, okay, I've seen people go from A to B, and then maybe C, and then they fall back to A. So then I reverse their steps. I'm like, how did they go from C to A? And that's how I do my thing. So I kind of reverse psychology, or like I work in reverse, right? I look at the mistakes first, and then I do something, right? And then sometimes I get caught up in those mistakes. So then nobody really understands me. Even me explaining right now, I know it's a little confusing, but that's how my brain works. And my mom, it took her a long time to kind of understand me. And my parents, my dad, like at the beginning, he would always say it to me. And it was weird, but it's weird when you don't understand them. So it took a long time for them to, and I feel like they're not fully there yet, but they understand me a little bit more. But I'm pretty sure if I went to somebody who was more qualified, they could have maybe given me an actual better analysis of what I'm saying. Do you understand, or is that?
Yeah. I mean, like what I'm kind of like understanding is that you kind of need somebody from the outside to understand where you're coming from, right?
Yeah,
Your whole
exactly.
perception.
Yeah.
And At times, your parents might have this kind of like narrow view of you because, like you said, they just see you as their little kid,
Yeah.
their little boy because, they always had this mentality of you. But then I also feel like it's kind of important, like what we were talking about earlier, kind of like you have to break out of your own like parents, and like not have them dictating your life,
Exactly.
So then that way they can see, that you're becoming this mature adult, that you're becoming this mature person that can make their own decisions.
Yeah.
And so if they see that, then they'll eventually maybe get out of that mindset that, you're their little boy.
Exactly.
So I think it can work both ways, that, you can grow out of that bubble, but at the same time, you might need the outside perspective. And I think, like, for me personally, I would say when you're looking for some love and guidance, yes, you could look for it in your family, but sometimes you're going to need that outside help. Because you're going to need that balance, right? And this show is all about balance, and you're going to need that outside opinion. So.
But I guess, like, right now, like, my brain just clicked, and I think I can clarify the perfect example, right?
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So, to my parents, and maybe to a lot of people listening to this, they see a problem, and they go, like, you know what? This looks bad. Let me just avoid it, right?
Yeah.
I have this weird thing, man, where, like, I need to make sure that it's bad before avoiding it, because what if it's not bad?
Yeah.
So, I'll give you an example. Let's say, like, I was in a situation where things seemed so bad, clear as day, right? Unavoidable, like that. I should avoid it. Anybody would have told me that. In fact, they did, including my parents. But the way I think is that if I didn't go and check, then the guilt of not checking would mess me up more than avoiding it. So I'll give you an analogy. Like, if you see a person in the middle of the street just lying there,
right?
Like, would you go check and make sure that person is dead or alive? Because they could just be passed out. They could be sleeping, they could be passed out, or they could be dead, or injured, whatever. If I just drive by, maybe to other people they'll be like, okay, like, it's not my responsibility. Right. But to me, the guilt of driving by and not ensuring that person was either of those things is gonna eat me throughout my life, or more than if I had stopped and maybe, like, see that person dead or that, do you get what I'm trying to say? Like, that. Yeah. So again, to my parents, they're like, that's weird. But to me, like, the guilt of not ensuring that this is wrong, it eats me alive. And maybe to my family, it was like, but that's dumb because you didn't need to go check. It's like, you didn't need to. And realistically, they're not wrong. Like, some of these things were obvious, right? But I needed to double check. That's all. So maybe to shorten it, maybe it's that I need to double check things. And to a lot of people, they just need to one time check it, Yeah. And that's why my parents didn't understand me growing up. And they couldn't help me. In fact, few people could help me because they didn't understand that part of me where I need to make sure that this is fully bad. So one day when people go like, hey, did you see that guy? Yeah, I checked. I was there and he was hurt or he was whatever, versus saying, oh, yeah, like, yeah, I don't know what happened to that dude. Like, yeah, I could have done something. Like, that would eat me alive more. But to my parents, it was like, that's weird, So, again, my mom, my dad, they love me. They have helped me, but they couldn't understand me, Yeah. And that was so frustrating growing up, man. It was so frustrating. But that's what I'm trying to say. As much as you can have this connection, it almost transcends biology, where it's like spiritual, it doesn't mean that people can help you. That's like the main point, right? What do you think?
No, I agree with you. And that was pretty deep. I'm not going to lie. But, like, honestly, like, your connection with your parents can be so deep that sometimes they won't even understand you. And it can be frustrating. Like, for you, it was pretty frustrating. I understand. So I think, like, it's just so, like, deep. It goes beyond biology, like you're saying. It's a spiritual kind of love. And at times, I guess we're kind of, like, so focused that we just want to look for that our parents' love and guidance and advice that we don't, see that sometimes, we need to step out of that and kind of, like, get some outside help or an outside opinion, right? And I think that kind of can sometimes interfere within your life, but then I think we have to establish that and know it. Like, okay, maybe sometimes going to my parents for guidance is not like the right road to take for this problem I have in my life.
Exactly.
Right. So to get out of this chaos that I'm having right now in my life, I need to go and look for like an outside opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
But before you do that, like you kind of need to become this independent thinker, you know, be able to establish that yourself. So
Exactly.
that's like what I see from your personal experience, you know?
Yeah, and it was so refreshing. Like a couple years ago, maybe like 2 years ago, when I sat down like this with my dad, and I was like, "Dad, like I did that because," and then I explained to him what I just explained to you. He looked at me and he literally like shed a tear. He goes like, "It's like I needed to know that." He's like, "I didn't know that." Like, you know, and maybe I had told him that my whole life, but maybe it was the situation. Maybe it was like the way I explained it. But like when he understood it, like a lot of things change, you know, because maybe we're all different. Just because my son's my dad's son,
Right.
it doesn't mean that like I'm like him. Same with my mom. Me and my mom have really similar attributes and characteristics, but even her, she tells me all the time. She goes like, "It's been really hard to understand you," and I really try to make it easy to understand me, but it doesn't work like that, right? And that's what we're trying to get to, like, as much as it's spiritual or like a connection that you can't explain, it doesn't guarantee that it's useful, you know. Do you have like any story or example, like, do you agree, like?
Yeah, like I mean, I can give one quick example, kind of like the love I received, you know, being the youngest in the family. I felt sometimes was more than my sister when we were growing up, you know, and she was the older sibling. Though that's not the case now that we're adults, but I feel kind of like it was just more than I felt like it should have been more even, you know, more established, right? And I guess because my parents just saw me as like, you know, the little boy, the youngest of the family, right? The baby of the family, you know?
Yeah.
So I was given more of that love than my sister. And I feel like kind of like tracking back, it kind of goes into that kind of toxicity of in Latino families, you know, kind of like they see the youngest as like the most vulnerable. We got to take care of them, you know, and we got to do this. But maybe sometimes now that I'm older and an adult now, I kind of see it kind of hindered me in the sense that I should have been given more independent, you know, like a more independent role, like, you know, be able to take care of myself, right? Yeah. So maybe that's why my parents kind of gave me too much love, and it was just not like the right way, you know. So maybe kind of like your case where like they didn't understand you.
Yeah.
I wasn't understood that I should have been given more independence, you know.
And I think that, bro, the first thing to transcend that would be, which is what my parents did, and I commend them for that, right? Because I do feel like sometimes like there are things that I wish could have been different, but the story's not yet over, right? Because I still have my parents, I'm still alive, so there's always time, right? And what they did is, this is what they did, right? And I'm not saying everybody should do that, but what they did is they refuge a lot of things in their faith in God. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So if they assumed or thought I was doing something bad or I was suffering, and they knew they couldn't help me, their decision wasn't to like ship me out to like another country, or to just like grab me and shake me and tell me that I need to wake up or be better. They tried to help me as much as they could. When they saw that they couldn't, then they basically just said, "You know what, God, like, you're stronger than us, like, help my son." And I'll be honest, like, I think it worked, you know, because many times that they did that, it would literally turn around, you know, like our relationship would turn around and my life would turn around, right? And I want to end with 2 quotes, right, which is what I'm trying to say about the usefulness, right? One of them is Pablo Escobar's mom, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Again, so we talked about this, like, that no matter what you do, like the connection is so strong that like no matter what you do, you can be the worst person in the world and your mom will always love you. Yeah. And I find that so fascinating. Do you know what his mom
like
said?
Love is blind, kind of like almost kind of, you know, in that sense. But like, yeah, Pablo Escobar, it's kind of like I remember writing it down here. So she's like, I pray to God to no other mothers have to experience the pain I'm feeling. I know my son wasn't as bad as they made him out to be. I know they blamed him for everything bad that happened. I want the good things he did to be remembered, because he didn't do the bad things that they say that he did. As a son, there will never be anyone better. He was a noble man, and not just a son. Not just as a son.
Jeez.
Like, when you see that, knowing of all like these like atrocities this man did,
Yeah.
the fact that his mom just kind of wants to look at the positive, it just kind of looks like that unbalanced kind of.
But I think
love.
I think she actually believes that he didn't do these things, man.
That's why, like, love is blind, man. Almost, As a mom, you're kind of like I said, like that mama bear kind of mentality
Yeah.
where you just want to protect him at all costs,
Exactly.
even though he's like one of the worst, criminals in the world.
And it's so funny how she goes like, there will never be anyone better. Like, and the way she talks about him, like not even my mom talks about me like that. Like, like that's crazy. That's so fascinating to me, man. And the last one that I looked up, Ted Bundy's mom, and I think that was even more fascinating. Like, so there's a journalist that basically got the confessions out of Ted Bundy. He was a serial killer.
Yeah.
He killed supposedly over like 100 women or something like that, and obviously he got the electric chair, but that journalist, he got the confessions out of him, and when he went to Ted Bundy's mom's house, her name is Eleanor Louise. There's two things that like creep me out. So he says that when he was talking, when he played the tapes, she was listening, and that throughout some parts of the tape, she would just like start squealing like a mouse.
What?
Yeah, just squealing, like like
Why
just
squealing?
that's what he says, right? Like that's what he says, that she was just squealing, and he says that he found it awkward.
Yeah,
and
I would
then
too.
yeah, so and he says that at the end of the tapes when she finished, there was a moment of silence. She stood up. She says she clapped and she goes like, "Hey, anyway, so does anybody want coffee or any ice cream?"
What?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is like that love doesn't guarantee that the love you have is going to be good, useful. It's so crazy, man. Like I guarantee that this lady obviously knew what she had heard, but she, in order to not go insane, she literally had to like block everything she heard out, because the love is just, the bond it's so, like, I guess when I say unbreakable, which if there was a moment where it felt like it would break, it means that you would literally lose your mind. That's why these moms are in denial, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I guess you could say these moms are delusional.
Oh, 100%.
They're in their own world, right? Where they kind of just
100%.
Even though their sons made like the worst kind of like human like violent activities,
Yeah, especially Ted Bundy.
He was America's most notorious serial killer, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just so bizarre is that I think that it just kind of comes into that kind of mindset where I don't know how any mom can go, but like coming back, it's kind of like you said, even though like when people ask what is like love in a family, it's that kind of unconditional love.
Exactly.
But it comes to a point where does it become useful, like you said?
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of like, an underlying statement we're trying to make, like that useful love should be more for like, understanding, like even though that these guys did one of the worst things in human history, their mom should have acknowledged, that the pain that they caused to other mothers, and to other families.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to end this, I think like this is a nice way just to understand like the family love should be, even though unconditional, should be useful at the same time.
Exactly. And how do you get that useful love? By, again, being humble, being sincere. If you don't know all the answers, if you don't have the answers, you look for them. Maybe if you're a person of faith, you kind of leave that faith to God, and hopefully, you don't depend on yourself, right? Because who taught you? Ask yourself this, and I want to leave you guys with this. Ask yourself this: who taught me how to love? And if you have a good answer, to be like, okay, and was that love useful? Right. Could it have been better? And if your answer is yes, then you have some work to do. So I want to leave you guys with that. It's a wrap. We'll see you guys for the next episode, where we'll be talking about friendship love, right? Which is philia. And we hope to, that you guys enjoy this episode, and we look forward to doing the next one. So follow us on our social media channels: Instagram, Out of Chaos Podcast, on YouTube. Subscribe, like the video, like the episode. Comment if you want, and again, give us any feedback. We welcome it. So thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
See you. Thank you.